On Patrol with the Suffolk County PBA is a dynamic podcast that brings together some of the most influential voices in the nation.
From union leaders and elected officials to law enforcement experts who explore the pressing issues shaping America.
Through thought-provoking conversations, we empower listeners to think critically about law enforcement, political policy, and the future of our society.
Available on Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and all Suffolk PBA social media platforms. Tune in to On Patrol with the Suffolk County PBA.
Welcome to another episode of On Patrol with the Suffolk County PBA. I'm CJ Hutter, the treasurer of the PBA.
I'm Tanner Brandemore, the Sergeant at Arms with the PBA.
And today joining us, we have Detective Sergeant Tamika Mays. Tamika's had a very interesting and unique career, starting off in New York City and then coming out to Suffolk County and now being the first Black female detective sergeant in the Suffolk County Police Department. Thanks for joining us, Tamika.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys.
So, I mentioned already that you've had a very interesting and unique career, and that really started with the start of your career in the NYPD. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the time you got hired and what occurred while you were in recruit training?
Sure. I was the 9/11 class. We started July 2nd, 2001. And obviously everybody knows when 9/11 would happen. I was in Company 1 and some of us were sent down to Ground Zero to make a crime scene. Mm-hmm. That was a couple of days afterwards. And what we did was walk the perimeter of Ground Zero, and eventually fences were put up to make the crime scene. Obviously we didn't put the fences up, but we just walked the route that they were going to go. And we also did a lot of pedestrian traffic and stuff like that.
How surreal was that, being down there on 9/11, going into a class about becoming a cop, and then this is kind of, you're not even out of the academy yet, and you're already dealing with a huge event like that?
Yeah, it was big. It didn't seem real. Like when you went down there, it actually looked almost like a movie. You know, like you never would expect to be present amongst something like that, and being a civilian all your life, and then I'm 2 months in an academy. So, I think the hardest part of it all was taking Long Island Railroad, and then you see the posters of missing, all those missing family members. So that actually put it in perspective, so you could see the amount of people that were actually struck by this event.
Yeah, that's crazy too, because not only are you thrown into it right away as a recruit, you haven't even completed your police training, but this isn't like what you typically think about as police work, where you're out there fighting crime. This is a terrorist attack, and you're out there basically assisting in a search and recovery mission.
Oh, absolutely. I think what I got from this incident was that people really did like cops at this time.
Right.
I know we get a lot of ridicule for a lot of different things, and that was the one time you've seen the community absolutely come out and help and provide water and anything they could to help officers there.
Right. You hear all the time, especially recently, where there's a lot of anti-police rhetoric out there. A lot of cops look back to 9/12, the day after 9/11, saying, we wish the country always felt the way they did about cops as they did on that day. And about the country in general, there's a lot of anti-American rhetoric out there, but it seemed like patriotism was at an all-time high at that moment too, at least during my lifetime.
Oh, absolutely. They love cops, and everybody came together. There was no hatred amongst anybody that obviously were here, in New York especially.
Right. Now, if you remember, how many tours or how many hours were you actually down there at Ground Zero?
We spent 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Wow. So it's a substantial amount of time.
Around perimeter, and understand the academy itself. You didn't get away from the smoke and the smell and everything that was going on.
At the time, the academy was down there in Manhattan on 20th Street.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we had muster on the rooftop, so that's what we dealt with.
Right. Right.
They didn't give you a gun or anything to go out there, right? Because usually you don't get guns.
They did. They actually gave us guns and vests very early, prior to when we would usually have it, because we were 2 months in. We had no equipment with us.
Oh, wow. Now, were you out there in gray uniforms, or was it the blue uniform?
No, when we went down, well, at some point they did put us back in uniforms, but when we went down there, we were in plain clothes. They would tell groups what to put on for what they were doing that day.
Okay, so what would you be in, jeans and a polo shirt or something like that?
We were in plain clothes. Really.
Plain clothes, okay.
Yeah. And we were assigned an officer from the academy.
Okay, so you kind of had like a group of recruits. There was one, police officer that was kind of supervising everybody.
Absolutely.
Okay, and making sure that the right things were happening at the right times.
Yes, and you have to understand. Obviously, those officers, this never happened to anybody. There.
Right. Yeah. Everybody's in a unique spot.
So it was a hard time.
Right.
It was a hard time for everybody there. So.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I never knew you guys were out there in plain clothes. In my mind, when I've heard of the 9/11 class in the past, I thought you were out there in your gray uniforms.
Yeah, we were. And then, like I said, they had pockets of us on different days doing different activities. So.
Okay.
Did you go back and forth to the academy and then out there? Because I know you said that you weren't there like the whole time, or you just straight 2 weeks and then you went back to the academy.
No, it was all over. We were all over the place for a while. And it's crazy. They even extended our academy class like 4 months. Like we were like the longest academy class ever.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess that's to make up for the classroom time you were missing
Absolutely.
while you were out there at Ground Zero.
Yeah, because you do have to understand, they didn't know what to do with us. Obviously, This incident happened, and they sent some of us to the driving range and like different locations. And then at some point throughout the night, they said, all right, we're going into the police academy. So they didn't know what to do. Obviously, like I said, this was new to everybody. So with the shock and the drama of it all, they had to figure out something with us.
Did you see like in your class were people like questioning whether they should really be cops, or was it the opposite? Like they felt very proud?
I don't know anybody that ever questioned why they were there and if they should leave.
Oh, that's great to hear. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
A lot of recruits, even without the full completed training, they really stepped up to the challenge at that moment.
Oh, absolutely. I think if there was ever a time for somebody to realize that this is not for them, that would have been it. That would have been the time.
Absolutely.
Right. Now, once you graduated the academy, because it was an extended academy, where did you get assigned?
I worked in the 109 precinct.
The 109 in Queens North.
Yes.
Now, once you were out in the precinct and you completed the academy training, did you ever go back to Ground Zero? Were you part of any efforts down there after that as a rookie?
No, not at all.
Just while your time in the academy.
When they sent us there, we would do what we're told to do, and that was it. So once we graduated, I myself did not go back down there, and I don't know who else from our class was sent back down there.
Okay, but definitely not as a group. You didn't have to go back down. All right. Well, that at least you did your part. You were down there for 2 weeks. Thank you for any efforts that you put in down there.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Now, once you're in the 109 precinct, what kind of assignment were you given once you were there?
I stayed in the 109 for 3 years and just basic patrol.
Patrol?
Yeah. And then from the 109, I went to Queens North Task Force, which is pretty much right around the corner.
Right.
From the 109 precinct. And for those who don't know what Task Force does, it's hats and bats and riot stuff. When there's parades or any political event in Manhattan, they would send us down there. When we weren't doing that stuff, we're doing training, or we would be in addition to any unit in Queens North or any precinct, we would write summonses and make arrests.
Right. So you would go out, address whatever condition was going on at that time, and you would be the primary unit used when it came to, like you said, riots and demonstrations, which seemed like were occurring more and more often as time went on.
Yeah. And then from there, I was there for 3 years, and I was in Queens North Evidence Collection. Same building as a task force, but they do what crime scene does. We process crime scenes. Okay. So I did that for 3 years before I came to Suffolk.
Okay. Now, when did you come to Suffolk County?
2010, June 28th, 2010.
June of 2010. All right. Yeah. So you had a significant amount of time in the city before you came out here. About 9 years in the city, and now you've been out here for, what, about 15-ish?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that was a big change for me. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't something that I was anxious to do. I wasn't really like, I want to leave the city.
Okay. What changed your mind to?
Well, my father was a Suffolk County detective, Detective Lawrence Leak. He retired here with 37 years on. He kept saying, you have to go. And I'm like, no, I don't. No, I don't. And it was a conversation that I had with Detective Sergeant Claudia and Bartolome in the 112 precinct.
I know Claudia. She's a friend of mine.
Yeah. Yes. So we're very close. And I was actually interviewed for detective. And like she was a friend of mine, and like you make your hooks, and she was my hook.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I work with her at precinct a lot, processing burglaries and stuff, and we became close. And had a conversation with her, and she straight up told me, like, I will make sure you never do anything on this job if you stay. She said, if you pass up Suffolk County, you're crazy. I'm like, all right. So it was a motivating factor.
Okay. You know what? It's nice to hear, too, that you had people looking out for what was in your best interest. Because ultimately, you've had a great career out here in Suffolk County now, too.
Yes, absolutely. Nothing I planned. I just planned to really come out here, work, and like retire.
Right. Now, your father's retired from this job. Did you grow up always wanting to be a cop? Because I know like a lot of people that grow up with parents that are police officers or grandparents that are police officers, a lot of times you grow up wanting to be a cop.
Never.
You didn't want to. So
Never.
What made you fall into this line of work?
It was my dad. From the age of 18, I've taken every test.
Okay.
All right. And I passed the city test. I graduated college. I went to Utica College of Syracuse University. I did go for criminal justice, but it was called economic crime investigation. The first white-collar crime program in New York. I wanted to work Secret Service.
Okay.
Or FBI, and I was taking these tests. I graduated. I went to Penn State for my best friend's last semester. Like, you know, I was just like, I'm looking for work. And then I actually was moving to Fairfax, Virginia. I decided I'll take the police test down there since I'd taken all these. And I was there for 12 hours and NYPD called me.
Okay.
So I stayed in Virginia for 2 weeks and I came back home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So ultimately you decided you wanted to at least work close to home because you are close with your father. You didn't want to leave him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now, so once you graduate the Suffolk County Police Academy, where'd your career take you? Where were you assigned out of the academy?
First precinct.
First precinct, and you doing, I guess, 2-tour patrol at that time?
Absolutely. Like I worked a lot in Deer Park, and then I became a double car, 102 sector, which at the time was probably the busiest sector because they didn't have the new development there.
Okay.
So it was busy, and I like being busy. I can't like do nothing. So.
Right. Now, what was it like? You know, you're coming from New York City where everybody rides double to coming from Suffolk County and maybe you ride single a few times before you eventually get assigned permanently to a double car. What was it like riding solo the first couple of times you did it?
It was weird.
Yeah.
But they actually in the academy, they do train you to work by yourself. That was the biggest difference in like the city academy from Suffolk. I think the city academy, like, academically was a little harder. Physically, Suffolk was absolutely more hard.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and they do prepare you to like have a situation.
Yeah.
You know.
And so I had almost 9 years in the NYPD before I came out to Suffolk also. And I always felt the same way. Like physically, I felt like the Suffolk County Police Department ran me longer, had me do more PT, more DT. Academically, I felt it was easier, but I always thought also in my back of my mind, I don't think it's that they are necessarily easier, but maybe it's more like review for us because we were already police officers for 9 years.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the staff at our police academy does a great job. I know the police officers come out with the knowledge they need. It was just more like review for people that have prior
that's
time.
True. That's true. So the work was repetition for us.
Right.
So
when you first go to the city academy, you have no idea what they're really teaching you at all. Like you said, all the experience really makes it a little bit easier for you to go in there and take tests and everything like that.
That's true. That is true. And all the instructors at the academy were great to us and they kicked our butt too. So,
right.
You know,
it's like you get paid to work out for 7 months.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And then you have a relationship with them afterwards anyway. And, you know, they always are very encouraging. And if you need help with anything, they always encourage you to reach out to them.
Right.
You know, so.
Yeah, I know. I mean, one of my best friends now is still an academy instructor, Ron Ross. I mean, he's in this building all the time. Everybody on our job knows who Ron Ross is.
Oh, absolutely.
He's a legend in our academy. He's been a PBA board member for almost 3 decades.
Oh, absolutely. And Ron is a great guy. And I talk to him, and he does like to come out to our events and stuff as well. So, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned he likes to come out to your events. What are your events? Obviously, I know what group you're a part of, but why don't you tell everybody who's watching?
Pretty much Suffolk County Prom Impact. We actually took over, and we pretty much run the event now on behalf of the police department.
And when you say we, you mean the Suffolk County Police LGBTQ
yes,
Society?
Absolutely. LGBT Society. We run Prom Impact. We always try to do a pre-Pride event to welcome in Pride, which we celebrate obviously every June. We participate in marches in June. Long Island Pride. Cherry Grove has a Pride Parade coming up June 28th. We also have last year we had our first person of the year, and we honored Greg Caggiano. This year we're honoring Project Thank a Cop.
Project Thank a Cop's a great organization.
Absolutely. I actually met them before I was president of this organization. I met them when they had 2 years on working from the house.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I went out to their house in Nassau County, and they donated funds to us and a plaque.
Okay.
Not even knowing our organization was less than a year old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, and after that, we've built a relationship, and you guys know what they do for all the officers, throughout Suffolk, Nassau, and the city.
Yeah, Andy Fox, his wife Megan, they're great people over at Project Thank a Cop. They're always looking to help in any way they can whenever there's some sort of event that needs some sort of help.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
I first met them when Timmy Thrain got hurt out in the 7th Precinct. And Andy was calling me a day after it happened. He's like, hey, CJ, you don't know me, but I'm Andy Fox. I'm with Project Thank a Cop. We heard about the injury that Timmy Thrain sustained. What can we do to help? Does the family need food? What do the kids need any help with childcare? What's their schedules like? They were one of the first groups to reach out.
Yeah, Andy's good because anytime somebody gets hurt in Suffolk, he would call me.
Yeah.
He'd be like, what can we do? And he would feed the precinct, the nursing staff, send food to the house, and like I said, this is a mom and pop organization, so they weren't getting funding. They were using their funding. And this is an organization. They're not police officers.
Right.
They're just big supporters of police officers. Which is incredible.
Yeah. They're just members of the community that value the work police officers do.
And they said they came about because of all the rhetoric about anti-police. And they want to show police there's people out here who really do care.
It's so important to have people like that.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk all the time about how, we're out there trying to do the right thing for the community. And sometimes when there is that anti-police rhetoric out there, it's tough on our mental health when we're out there trying to do the right thing and we're getting ridiculed for trying to do the right thing. So it's great to see the organizations that are out there supporting us.
Oh, absolutely. And they have been a big supporter of Suffolk County Police LGBTQ Society. They actually contribute to a lot of our funding, a lot of our donations that we give out or raffles.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely are awesome with that. So for us to give back, we want to thank them. And it's going to be November 11th. So hopefully you guys are there.
November 11th. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yep. It'll be November 11th at Stonebridge. And we're going to honor them. So,
yeah, that'd be awesome. Great. I would like to be there. So how'd you get into running and being the president of the LGBTQ Society? Is this something that you started or did you take it over for somebody else?
No. So Suffolk County Police LGBTQ started in 2021 with the assistance of Thomas Joy, Chris Mangy, Tom Wolf, and Captain Kolsch.
Mm-hmm.
So, and myself. So obviously it was during the time when New York City police officers were banned from Pride.
Mm-hmm.
So we were working on this prior to that, but the rush to hurry up and get this done was because we were notified by Cherry Grove. They wanted us to march. And they were like, whoever you can have to march because we want to show the police that we do support them.
Oh, that's great to hear.
So we obviously got the organization running, and Chris Mangy was the president.
Okay.
And with his scheduling and everything else with that, he works very hard. He thought it was best that, I was the vice president. So he thought it was best that, he stepped down and, we put it together. And I asked anybody else if they wanted to be president. They said no. So that's how that happened.
So you took over. And I find that it's great that you guys saw a problem that was going on in the city and you decided to do something about it out here in Suffolk County to make sure that, people felt supported. People in the LGBTQ community who were in law enforcement felt like they had the support, because when you say the NYPD wasn't in the pride parades, that wasn't because the police officers didn't want to do it. That had a lot to do with that anti-police rhetoric that was out there.
Absolutely. So it's hard to say that, you have law enforcement that are out and who want to be supportive or just supportive. And you're told for all these years you've been marching in uniform that they don't want you there at all.
Right. That's great. And meanwhile, this is a group that's supposed to be standing up for your rights as a gay man, a lesbian woman.
Absolutely.
And now you're being told you're not allowed to march because of the job you chose.
Absolutely. So it's important to us. And even here with the organization, we try to let officers, civilians know that, like, me as the president, my purpose here is to make sure that they feel safe. If there's any issues that they may have, whether it has to do with them being openly gay or lesbian, or even trans, anything like that, like, they can come to me. We can talk about it. And I go to the unions or I go to the police commission and we sit down and work it out.
Now, when you guys were starting up and the city organizations were banning police officers from marching in their parades, did you get any sense of that going on out here, or were the Suffolk County organizations and parades more welcoming right away?
Oh, absolutely. We didn't get any pushback from Suffolk County at all.
Oh, that's great to hear.
It's always been welcoming, and we still don't get any pushback from anytime we want to do anything. The chiefs are very responsive. Police commission is very responsive, and they welcome anything that we put out there. We want to march. They say no problem. We want to march in uniform. It's not a problem.
That's great to hear, because for a while, the extremists, and I say this all the time, extremists on both sides of the aisle when it comes to politics are a problem. But the extremists out in New York City were not even letting openly gay and lesbian police officers march in a parade in uniform because they didn't want to be associated with the police at that time. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, it's wild to me too. You don't want to be associated with police, but when you need them, who you call?
Right, exactly. It's bizarre.
It doesn't matter where you come from or what you do.
Exactly. And nobody cares. Like, as long as you have that uniform on, they want you there. They need your help. So it's bizarre to me that even today, like, we deal with that.
Was the command staff as supportive of you guys when you guys were originated in 2021? Or was Stu Cameron the police commissioner at the time? Or was that
Absolutely.
already?
Yes, he was. And he was more than welcoming to it all. And he was probably one of the main people that came to majority of our events. We had a Halloween party that year. We also marched. Like, we had a lot of higher ups coming out to support us. So, and he made sure that he was there all the time.
Yeah, it's always great for any group to have the backing of the department and the county and the command staff, because that makes it easier for you to grow and thrive into an organization like some of the ones that have been around forever, like the Steubens or the Emeralds. Those are big groups. So, as time goes on, hopefully your society grows as well, because it's not just about including, the openly gay and lesbian police officers, but it's the supporters too, right? Like there are straight members of your organization because they want to support their brothers and sisters in blue. They want to be able to openly support, maybe they have loved ones at home that are openly gay or lesbian, and they want to make sure that these people feel accepted in society.
Yes, and we do have a lot more non-gay and lesbian members in our organization, and that's pretty much, that shows us that they understand why we're here. Mm-hmm. They understand why it's important that our organization is present, and they do want to show support, and they do, so, and it feels good to know that, it's not so negative.
Right.
So it's always a pleasure to know. Like, even we go to the recruit class, we give a little speech, and they come to the table and they talk a little bit, sign their name, and they remember.
Yeah, it's great.
So
it's great. Now, so after you got involved with this LGBTQ society, you're also still a working cop, and you're a very active cop and investigator. So you eventually move on from the 1st precinct to the 4th precinct, and you get promoted to detective there?
Yeah, 4th. When I was in the 4th, I was working maybe for a year and a half. I went to PCS.
Okay.
Was there for maybe a year and a half, 2 years, and then I got promoted to detective. I worked as a detective for almost 5 years. Then I was promoted to sergeant. So I became the 2nd Black female sergeant in the county's history. April Hargrove is the 1st. I went to the 3rd precinct.
Okay.
I worked in
April's great too. She's a sweetheart. We run into her all the time at a lot of the fraternal events.
Yeah, she's probably one of my best friends here in Suffolk County. We came out together in June. We're not a couple. So April is absolutely straight. I am absolutely not. Yeah, we met in the academy, and we've been close ever since.
Okay. Yeah, April's great. So she was the first ever female black sergeant in Suffolk County. You're the second ever female black sergeant in Suffolk County. And eventually you become the first female black detective sergeant.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that brought you to Special Victims Unit.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I've been there for 2 years now.
2 years now as supervising the Special Victims Unit. And I know a lot of people out there in the public are fascinated by what the Special Victims Unit does. And a lot of that has to do with Law and Order, right? Law and Order, SVU,
Absolutely.
and what they see on TV. And yeah, I'm sure part of what people see on TV is realistic, but a lot of it is made for TV. It's not always the glamour that comes with a 60-minute episode of Law and Order.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. So, without going into any open cases or anything that might trip anything up in something that's ongoing in court, what are some of the things you've had to see and deal with in Special Victims? Because I know that could be very tough to deal with and traumatic.
Yeah. So the most part that you deal with, like, for people who don't know, Special Victims in Suffolk County deals with physically and sexually abused children. No adults. Regular squads deal with the adults. So any case where you're dealing with a parent or anybody molesting or physically beating a child is horrible. I always say that a lot of people don't want to come to the unit because they have this fear like, oh, I would really hurt that person if they did that. And it's kind of like, you won't, though, because your job is to help that child. So you don't even think about hurting that other person. I think it's the one unit in our department where you actually wear a cape on your back because you are a hero to these kids. You absolutely, like, we can't help what happens at home after they talk to us, what happens in the courts, but what we can do is stop the abuse right then.
Right.
So my job as a supervisor is not only to make sure my detectives are doing the right thing, but I have to make sure that their mental health is okay because the cases are not easy. And a lot of them have kids, so you have to put that in perspective when you're dealing with a child that has to tell a complete stranger what somebody who supposedly loves them is doing to them. And the cop has to now take that home.
Yeah, that's a tremendous burden. Because I'm a father, and I couldn't imagine having to take a statement from a child who's saying their father is molesting them at home or their father is, abusing them sexually at home. Like I couldn't imagine that betrayal, and I couldn't imagine having to deal with and investigate after. And you mentioned it, like a lot of people shy away from that kind of work because you feel like you're going to want to physically hurt that parent,
absolutely.
Right? You're going to be enraged, but ultimately our detectives remain professional and they do the job that they're there to do, and they help these children, but they don't go out as like vigilantes at night and take care of these parents another way.
Yeah, it's I'm a parent. I have 3 children. My youngest is 7, my only daughter. So I couldn't imagine like hearing these stories. Like, so it makes you like want to talk better with your kids and make sure that you never say certain things. Like one parent should never say, and I know they do it from like their heart, but they should never say like, if my kid told me that somebody did something to him, I would murder that person, because kids hear that and they will do anything to protect their parents.
Right.
So they won't tell them.
Right.
Because they don't want mom or dad to like go to jail.
Right.
Like people don't think about that, but it's kind of like that's realistic. That's real stuff.
Having that line of communication between the parent and the kid must be really important, because I used to work at a sector that covered the hospital, so we used to see special victims a lot. And sometimes the abuse goes on for a while just because it's hard to for the kid to communicate to the parent that they're being violated like that by somebody that they trust.
Yeah. And it also is hurtful when the kid said, "Well, I told my mom," and they do nothing.
Yeah.
I guess the response is, "Well, who's going to pay the bills?" That sucks. You know what I mean? So the kid did tell, and their response is what they get. And then good thing is sometimes like kids, like, since the mom didn't do anything, they'll tell a friend. And we have a lot of like good friends out there who tell their parent, and that parent will one way or another get that kid to the police station.
Okay.
So
So that's an interesting concept that, if you openly said, like, I would kill somebody to protect you, and that child is in danger, they worry about the parent. Like,
absolutely. They will take the abuse forever.
Right.
Yeah.
It's amazing
something that you learn. Like, they will really, like, take the abuse forever.
To protect the parent that they love. That's incredible.
Absolutely.
It's sad, but it's almost brave too to see little kids thinking that way. It's a weird way to think about it, because it is sad. But to think that a child would try to protect the people they love too, even as basically as a little baby,
Oh, absolutely. And you hope, like, when they are brave enough to talk and tell us what happens, and we do the best. We work hand in hand with the ADAs and CPS, and we try to make sure that moving forward, when they're out of our presence, that life for them will be easier.
Right.
Whether that's being removed from the parent or just giving the other parent the proper help to help their kid and having them go to therapy and stuff like that. So, so there's a lot of help after. Like, their case doesn't end with us.
Right.
It almost like just begins with us. And now people know what's going on, and, hopefully the child gets the help that they need and they can grow to be, healthy and professional.
Right. Yeah. Because you got to reacclimate to a normal way of life where you can trust adults or, somebody who's there to look after you. It takes a lot of trust that, a child has in a parent, that they're always going to look out for them and do the right thing for them. So when you're betrayed that way, that has to be built back up. Absolutely.
And like I said, we tried to build a relationship with the child in the beginning to have them open up with us.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they do that, they'll talk. Like, kids like to talk, even if it's about hard things, and kids tell the truth. Like, as much as people say kids are liars, like, they do lie, but there's certain things they can't lie about, or they can't they keep explaining the same story twice, 3 times, 4 times, and it be the same story. It's kind of like, no, they're telling you the truth. You may just not want to hear the truth.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's really horrible to hear, and I don't know how a kid could get over the betrayal of that other parent, where once you tell mommy that daddy's touching me inappropriately, if mommy does nothing because she's worried about paying the bills, like that's got to be very difficult for a child to get over as well.
Yeah, you have cases where, like, you have a child, like, having to testify against their father, and the mother's sitting behind him, like, in support. So, those are the most harsh cases, and unfortunately it happens. It happens, and my attitude is almost like, we see things in kids, right? If your kid comes home differently, or you hang out with a kid and kind of like, oh, that's his best friend, like, he's acting different, or he's not dressing the same way. They're not even taking showers for certain reasons. Like, you just think, oh, they're lazy or something. No, like, they're trying to prevent something from happening. And maybe if I don't shower, I'm dirty. That person won't want to bother me, If they go to school and they act a certain way, and they used to be very outgoing and now they're not, like, I feel like teachers, they pay attention, and they try to talk to these kids and say, oh, what's going on? Is everything okay? You can't ask leading questions, but you can ask enough for maybe the kid to feel comfortable in saying, no, everything's not okay.
Right. And teachers and educators play a vital role in that. They are mandated reporters. And if they hear something, they have to report it to the police. And a lot of times, I know in my school district, Shore-Whiting River, I love what the district is doing there. I think the teachers are all top notch. The school board's been doing a great job. They listen to what the community wants and needs for the kids. So the teachers do play a vital role in it. How many of these cases do you get that are actually referred to you by teachers rather than
we get a lot of law enforcement referrals.
Mm-hmm.
We do. A lot of times, though, the schools call, they mandated reporters, so they call CPS.
Okay.
And then CPS notifies us of what's going on, and we respond to the schools. My kids go to South Huntington School, and they're all good. Mm-hmm. Everybody's good, and everybody understands that, like, kids come first. And I know that you have a curriculum, but you can't teach the kid if they're not mentally present.
Right.
Something else is going on with them. Like, you have to, like, step up and do something. And I think all the schools know that, and they're doing their job.
Yeah. I think the schools are doing a great job with that too. You would have better insight to that than I do, but it's good to see, because we always talk about how cops, firemen, teachers, nurses, we're all on the same team here. We're all part of what keeps society together and safe. We're the ones out there making sure everybody can continue to live in the comfort that they've grown accustomed to living in here in Suffolk County.
Yeah, absolutely. And we work together. That's our point, is to work together. We may not always get along, but when it comes to certain things, we do get together and make it right. So,
right.
And that's what we try to do all the time.
Yeah. Now, being the supervisor in special victims, how many detectives do you supervise? Like, how do the teams work over there?
I am now supervising 7 detectives in special victims, and I'm supervising the detectives in Megan's Law as well.
Okay.
And they obviously are a branch of special victims, and their job is to the convicted, level 1, 2s, and 3 sex offenders. They are mandated to report, sign in, give a correct address. And Megan's Law, the detectives in Megan's Law, their job is to make sure that they're complying.
Right.
So I have 7 other detectives that deal with special victims cases specifically, and that's it.
Okay.
And then I'm Team 1, and then Sergeant Michael Games is a sergeant of Team 2, and he has 6 detectives. Yeah. And Lieutenant Jeff Walker's CO. So
with the Megan's Law unit, a lot of those, level 1, level 2 sex offenders, they've been convicted of crimes already in the past. How much work do you do with probation? Do you collaborate with probation at all? Do you see those POs a lot? Yeah, they deal with Megan's Law. They deal with probation. Everybody works together, because if somebody's not reporting, they'll find out. Right. If they have social media that they're not supposed to have, like, we're informed. Okay. And we can shut it down. We go to their houses. We knock on doors and make sure that they actually live there. Right. And if somebody's not complying, probation helps us by, they're going to come in. So, and then they get arrested for not being in compliance. Right.
Right. Do you get that a lot where people aren't complying? Or?
We get a lot of people under compliance, but you also got to understand it's almost 1,500, registered sex offenders in the county.
That's a lot.
Exactly. So the guys are working hard, and they're doing the best that they can to make sure, especially the level 3s and everybody, is like under compliance. We don't want ever to tell anybody to reoffend or hurt anybody else out there. So, they got their work. They have work to do, and they're doing it. So, right.
And it's another prime example of working with our partners in law enforcement. It's not just always the police department that does everything, right? Our partners in probation are great qualified investigators as well. They do their job as well as anybody in the country. And, it's great to be able to have that partnership with the Suffolk County Probation here to assist in making sure that these sex offenders who have been found guilty of crimes, heinous crimes, are monitored so that they don't reoffend.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And it takes all of us, we get calls from the sheriff's probation. Right. Megan's Law, themselves, and, outside communities. They know who's out there, and they notify the police all the time. Right. Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to touch on too that your group does, and you mentioned it earlier, but we didn't dive too deep into it, was the Prom Impact event that you guys do every year. Why don't you explain a little bit to the public what that is? Because I think it's one of those great events that sometimes doesn't get all the notoriety it deserves. Yeah, Prom Impact, pretty much the purpose of it is for all Suffolk County students, seniors, juniors and seniors, to be able to have attire to wear to their prom. Mm-hmm. No student should not go to prom because they can't afford the tux or the dress. And I think the misconception once we took it was that it's for gay kids. It's not. It's for every student in Suffolk County. My organization, Suffolk County Police LGBTQ Society, is assisting the county, the police department, and hosting this event for the students. We usually have it in April at the police academy, and we get tons of donations from stores, dress shops, shoe locations, people. Mm-hmm. My daughter wore this to prom one time. They donated to us. We get hundreds and hundreds of donations, and we don't get enough kids out there. We have more clothes than children.
Wow.
About how many kids come out each year for this?
Last year we had this year we had 85. Last year about 75, but we have over 300 dresses.
Wow.
You know, we have over 300 dresses and suits, and we're trying to get, you know, the schools to, you know, which we talk to all the schools in Suffolk. You know, if it's transportation that's a problem, then maybe we can work on that.
Right.
You know, a lot of kids are saying, well, we didn't hear about this until this. And I'm like, well, we make sure all the schools are provided with the information. And nobody should feel like, even in a school, like, oh, like our kids can afford that, because nobody really knows what goes on inside somebody's house or what their parents' pocket looks like.
Right,
you know?
right.
So,
Every school district, especially when you're talking about public schools on Long Island, there's going to be some families that, you know what, if I don't have to spend $400 or $500 on a dress or a tux that's going to be worn one time, it's good to be able to get that donation so your kid could still have that life experience and not be deterred from going to prom just because you can't afford a dress or a tux.
Absolutely. And, you know, there's so many nice items that we get.
Right.
They're brand new, off the racks, most of them. And the kids should have options. Like,
Right.
just come and see. And sometimes you leave with more than one item.
Right.
You know, you can't make a choice. And we're like, you know what? It's okay. You know, we've had kids call us after it was over. And if we're able to assist them, we do.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, it's great to hear that the community support is exceeding the demand, but it'd be great if the demand matched the actual need.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, I think the show out is what it is because of the negative condensation that we get, you know, about, you know, maybe it's just for gay kids. It's absolutely not.
Right.
You know, it's open to every Suffolk County student, every school in Suffolk County. And even we donate to Nassau as well. And Nassau County has donated to us as well. You know, so we try to make sure that we don't do prom impact on the same day, our prom event on the same day. And anything that I have left over, I would give to her, you know, to
you work together.
Nassau County, yeah. And they would do the same for me.
Yeah, you work together to make sure you could accommodate as many shapes and sizes as needed.
Absolutely. So, yes, and that's the whole thing. Prom impact started in New York City.
Okay.
They actually own the name Prom Impact. You know, they have that titled or trademarked.
New York City Police Department has that?
NYPD.
Really?
Trademarked. Yes. Tanya Duhaney, she's a police officer who I was actually in the 9/11 class with. She actually started Prom Impact in New York City. And, you know, I had to ask permission to continue to use the name.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, because Women's Association used to, like, host Prom Impact, and then I ended up taking it over.
Okay.
So I had to have permission to do that. So obviously I was granted permission. So it worked out. So
now, when the Women's Association relinquished that event to you, it's just you're picking up where they left off. It's not like anything's not happening anymore that used to happen. You're just now this is going to be our event. They could do something else, and everybody kind of works together to make sure the mission gets accomplished for every need and want for all the events that occur within the fraternal organizations.
Absolutely. You know, we've had a big support from Veterans Association, the Guardians, Hispanic Society, Asian Jade. You know, we had a couple more fraternities, fraternal organizations help us out. And, you know, we appreciate it all.
Yeah.
We appreciate it all. So I think the hope is at some point that, like last year, we went to meaning Suffolk County Police LGBTQ Society. We went to an event that Nassau County had, and it was like their fraternal day in Freeport on Nautica Mile. And it was amazing. It was the first time that I've ever seen all fraternals in any Nassau or Suffolk, like together hosting an event. And hopefully we were able to do that out here in Suffolk.
Yeah, that's cool. I know for a couple of years we attempted to host a fraternal, whereas multiple fraternal organizations, a Christmas party together.
Okay. That was Ohika.
Yeah, at Ohika, exactly.
Ohika, that was awesome.
Yes.
That was awesome.
It was great to get all the groups together because you end up with a party of 500 people because every group is there rather than, 80 from this group, and then there's another party with 40 from this group.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's nice to get everybody together.
Yeah. I think that was awesome.
Yeah,
that event was probably like one of my favorite events out here. So,
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Yep.
I think it's nice to see like the fraternal groups working together too and be collaborative and doing something like you're doing, like the prom impact that benefits so many kids, where they can go to an important event in high school, a prom. It really is a big event for a lot of kids in high school at the end there.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
It highlights another way that police officers are out there helping the community. It's not just we're out there fighting crime when we're in our uniforms. It's not we're just out there, saving lives, doing CPR when we're out in uniform, riding around a patrol car. But you're doing a lot of this on your own time to benefit the community as well. And that's what police officers do. A lot of us are doing things like Prom Impact to benefit kids in the community, or coaching Little League to benefit kids in the community. That's police officers. It's ingrained in us to just be positive contributors to our society.
Absolutely. And it doesn't take to get paid overtime to do it.
Right.
This is all volunteer work.
Right.
All of our events that we have or we go to, it's on our time. So,
right.
We're not asking for compensation for it because it's the right thing to do. So, and to see the kids, like Prom Impact, I had a mother text me a picture of her daughter for her prom and said, "Thank you so much. This wouldn't have happened without you guys." That's amazing.
That's great to hear.
That's amazing. And that's what it's for. It could just be one kid that we touch. At least we're helping somebody.
Right. We're out there helping people helping people.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well, Tamika, we appreciate you coming on. We appreciate you talking about your very unique career, how you started in New York City 9/11, now being the first ever detective sergeant, black female in Suffolk County Police Department's history, your role running the LGBTQ society and all the good it does for the community as a whole. Is there anything else that you would like to speak about or touch on before we wrap up here today?
No, I think it's good that like you guys have me on here. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I don't get all the good publicity all the time. Right. Just me being openly gay, I've been since 16. I've never had a problem in NYPD. Definitely have not had a problem in Suffolk County Police Department. I'm actually very well liked by a lot of people in Suffolk County, from every level, from police to up to the police commissioner. And I just appreciate all the support that we get. And at some point you hope the negativity will go away, but we know that's not realistic. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. And I'm not going away because of it. So,
well, I'm glad you said that. I'm glad that you feel like you've never been looked at differently within the police departments, and you've had the opportunities to be a successful cop, a successful investigator. Now you're a supervisor of other investigators. So you've been able to have this great career out here and feel comfortable doing it. And I think that speaks volumes, because there are people that are outside of law enforcement that just assume, because of the negative rhetoric that's been out there for 2 decades, that a lot of us are just these racist bigots, and you don't feel that way. And I'm glad you don't feel that way.
Not at all. Like, honestly, like being the second black female ever promoted, or the first black detective sergeant ever in history, I don't blame the department for that. You know what I mean? I really don't. It's not a lot of black females on the job. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to take more tests and we can come together. It's just getting black officers on the job and having them take the test and get promoted.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
You work hard, it pays off. So.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it'd be great to see more people taking the test. I mean, our last test was, we were at a low. Our test applicants, right, people that want to be Suffolk County police officers over the last 20-something years has dropped by 67%. So people aren't growing up wanting to be cops anymore.
No, and they're scared.
They are, yes.
And I think they're scared too. You know, like we don't get the best reputations ever, and who wants to deal with that sometimes? You know, like you think about it, like it's almost ingrained in us. We have 8 personalities. We don't care.
Right.
But somebody who's young and trying to find themselves may not know that they're ready for that yet.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you recognizing, the career and successes you've had in law enforcement, both in the NYPD and Suffolk County. The residents of Suffolk County are fortunate to have you as a police officer, detective sergeant here, because you've done a lot of good work for the community. So thank you.
No, I appreciate it. Thank
Thanks
you
for joining
guys.
us.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Tamika.
much, guys.
All right.
Thank you.